Alright, so I decided to make a little bit of a review on this KTM 150 XCW in a somewhat supermoto form here. Um, the bike is basically bone stock with, like, I don't know, 8 hours on it, and the only thing I did to it was take the Alpina wheels off of the KTM 450 SMR that I have, and these ones pretty much bolted straight up. And I even took the stock rotor off and put it on this wheel. So literally just the wheels, and I had some used Metzler slicks on them too, and figured, for practice day, why not? Yeah, stock 280 mil rotor. As you can see, it changed colors a little bit, but it did not warp, and it didn't overheat it. Partially probably because I changed the fluid out for RBF 660, and it was pretty it barely held in there, but it worked. If you were 50 pounds heavier than me, you probably would smoke that front brake. And I also use a ton of rear brake, which you have to do on these two strokes. As far as riding it as a supermoto, the lap times were pretty okay compared to my 450 SMR here at OVRP racetrack, go-kart track. I do like a 41 something there. And on this, I did like a 43, high 43, like 43.9 or something like that. So it's like 2 seconds and change slower. And that's really, a lot of it's down to the power and also obviously the suspension. The suspension chatters like a mofo, as the kids say. And I mean, you just ride through it. It chatters like crazy. It doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence. And the other thing is that the weight of the bike, it's tall and soft, so the weight transfer moment is pretty severe. So transferring onto the power and onto the brakes, it takes a while for that weight to actually make it to the front tire or the rear tire. So in that moment, shit can get a little swazy. But if you're very smooth and calm and all your inputs are super soft and, well, hard but gradual and consistent, then this thing's a ripper. It's a lot of fun. You gotta bang gears like crazy on this thing. I have a KLX 300 SM, which is almost as fast as this thing. People like to dog on that thing, but on street tires, I did a 44.5 around this track, and I only did barely a 43 on this. And this thing's supposed to make more power and be 60, well, on paper, 70 or 80 pounds lighter. Mine's obviously had some shit done to it, but I get just about the same top speed on this as I do the other bike. This is maybe 2 or 3 mile an hour faster. So in terms of that, like, DRZ, KLX, XCW 150, they're all kind of probably about the same speed on a go-kart track. In my opinion, you just kind of got to get used to the quirks of the bike and how numb it is and how much it's going to chatter. But other than that, it's a lot of fun. It's the power band of the two-stroke it's fun to work with. You really got to scream every gear. It bogs everywhere if you're not really in like the lowest gear possible for every corner. And there's no engine braking. You can't really back it in on this thing. Something I really love to do, but can't really do it on this. If you don't know how to use a rear brake, you're gonna have to learn, because this bike will not stop because there's no engine braking. So, but for me, didn't have any problem because I do know how to use the rear brake. This thing hardly uses any gas. 2.5 gallon tank. I didn't even fill it up once for the whole day. It's my lap timer. But overall review of this thing is that it'll work on a go-kart track, but the final drive is probably too low, and the bike does not make enough power to actually be ridden more than like to a gas station or a bar on the street. Like you just gotta wring its neck otherwise. Gearing, so the final drive is also really low, but on top of that, 14 tooth is the biggest you can go in the front, which, as far as I know, 1438 would be theoretically the biggest gearing you could do, which makes you top out at like 80. something miles an hour, like on the limiter, 80 something miles an hour in sixth gear, which is not great because that means cruising you're going to be pretty close to the limiter as well. Whereas the 300 and the 250, they got a big old 6 gears, and I bet you could probably fit a bigger front sprocket on there too. But they also got the mid range, so they can putt around in 6th gear halfway through the RPM range and be fine all day. As far as the vibrations are concerned, this thing vibrates less than any other machine I own. Part of that is probably because it's only 150 cc's, and the other part is probably because it's counterbalance. But yeah, so I enjoyed this bike. It's probably not going to be my main street supermoto. It was fun to rip on a go-kart track. I will probably have the ECU tuned so that it's not running 80-to-1 oil mixture. I mean, it didn't blow up today, but just peace of mind that, you know, when I'm wringing it out every single gear for 15 minutes at a time, that maybe it'll last just a little bit longer. But hey, top end kit's like $300, so it's a lot better than my 450, which is like $900 plus like half a day's worth work. Versus this is probably done in like, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. That's basically it. This is how it looks. I would love to get an SMR front fender, but they're kind of hard to find. That would be the last thing to do, missing piece. Other than that, I think it works.